Hello. So in this video today, I want to talk about the two China problem. Now you're probably wondering, two Chinas, what does that mean? Well, we need to go back in history a little bit and talk about how what we see today as made in China is not as clear-cut as it seems. So at the beginning of the 20th century, there was the imperial China. There was the Qing dynasty. I'm maybe not saying that right. Qing, and this, of course, was from a long line of other dynasties that China had for thousands of years. So China was always ruled by some type of imperial dynasty. The Mongols did take over in the Middle Ages at one point, but it was still a dynasty when they took over, just under them. But anyway, so China was under a monarchy, basically, until 1911, and that's when they had a revolution. And the result of that, and I forget, what year that ended, that war ended, but if it was still 1911 or 1912, but regardless, when the revolution was over, China became a republic, okay? So the thousands of year history of dynasties was over. China was now a republic, okay? And it was a nationalist republic. However, this was not to be stable because eventually, under Mao Zedong, a communist insurgency began to take shape. Okay, so China started having to fight this war between the republic and the purported idea of a communist China, a people's republic. Okay, now this was paused when the Japanese invaded China or attacked the eastern part of China, such as in the Rape of Nanking, as it's called. This was paused because now both sides of the Civil War basically had to fight the Japanese, of course. And at the end of World War II, the Allies, of course, defeated Imperial Japan, and this included in China, where Japan had to evacuate, okay? And the Republic was still standing, but it was not going to last, okay? So the Civil War resumed after World War II was over and after the Japanese left. And the Civil War returned, and Chiang Kai-shek was the leader of the nationalists, the Republic, and Mao Zedong still the leader of the communists. I forget when Chiang Kai-shek came in, but the point is, by this time he was the leader, I believe, if I remember right. So, okay, so 1949, the Civil War is over, and the communists win, okay? The communists take over mainland China, okay? And the nationalists, the Republic, flees mainland China, okay? They go to the small island of Taiwan. Well, it's not super small, but compared to mainland China, they go to this island called Formosa or Taiwan, and that's where the nationalist government goes, okay? So they do survive. Chiang Kai-shek survives and the Republic survives, but only in a small elite group, and they flee to Taiwan, okay? So now Mao Zedong, now controls all of mainland China, and it's communist, and it's under the People's Republic. Taiwan is now, at this point, the Republic of China, okay? And so now you have two Chinas, right? You have Taiwan, which claims, obviously they were there first in the mainland. They were the legitimate government. But then, of course, the People's Republic claims no, the Republic was, for whatever they claimed, the Republic was corrupt or was not meeting the needs of the people, and so we're the legitimate government. So this is where the two Chinas comes from. But a lot of Americans maybe don't realize this. Of course, the United States government realizes this. They made a treaty with Taiwan saying that if they were ever attacked by China, the United States would come to the aid of Taiwan. Okay, so let's look at this image here, which I haven't talked about yet. So obviously, you may know this. This is the flag of the People's Republic of China. This is the flag of China that you normally see. So mainland China, this is their flag, which of course takes off a little bit from the Soviet flag. It's got the red, of course, and some stars there. The communists like to use stars, although the Vietnamese flag has a big star in the middle and it's red background with a yellow star, probably taking off from this. And of course the Soviet flag is red background with a yellow or gold hammer and sickle, and a star, I believe. So this is the flag of the People's Republic. You see this more. And here's a map, of mainland China, so you can see how massive, obviously, I'm sure, you, the viewer, I'm sure you've seen maps of China. It's massive. You can see North and South Korea on the northern end there, that little peninsula jutting out. You can see how China, the border is right there with North Korea. So anyway, so that's the People's Republic. That's the mainland. Now this is the flag of Taiwan, or the Republic of China. Okay, so this is the flag. You may not see this very often, but this is the flag of the Republic, and I believe the blue sun there, or blue background with the white sun. That's the image of the symbol of the Kuomintang Party. I'm not saying that right, but that's the nationalist party that had to leave mainland China, the Republic. Although I think there are other parties now in Taiwan, but that was the main one that that represented the Republic. Now here's a map of Taiwan, so you can see, it's a small island. It's off the coast of the mainland. In comparison, it's really, obviously the territory is no comparison at all as far as size. However, they are strong in an economic sense. But of course, China is much bigger. I mean, obviously, the amount of Chinese products compared to Taiwanese products is, again, no comparison. We always see made in China, right? That's what we see. We don't see made in Taiwan that often. I think maybe a few decades ago you would have seen more Taiwanese products, but somehow China, got into the market more and was able, maybe just because of their territory and amount of people, they were able to create more products. What do we make of all this, right? Well, the reason why I think this should be talked about is that the People's Republic of China is still an enemy of the West and of the free world. Okay, the People's Republic, just like the Soviet Union was, the mainland China is still trying to subvert and conquer the free world, the capitalist world, the democratic world. How are they doing that? Well, they're not really obviously trying to invade countries per se, although they are building artificial islands in the South China Sea, which is kind of provocative. These are like military type islands, but the main way that China is trying to become dominant in the world is that they're just creating unspeakable amounts of products to flood the Western markets, right? They're creating these countless cheap products that we can't compete with, and they just flood the market, and they're becoming rich by doing this. Part of the reason why they're doing this is because they saw the Soviet Union, which was not creating products, not selling things, and they saw maybe that Russia was economically collapsing from the inside because there was no wealth there, right? It was a paper tiger, that there was no money there other than spent on military, and so Russia collapsed. So China, in part, they said, well, if we just make cheap products and just sell them to the West, we can actually enrich ourselves. And that's what the People's Republic of China has done and is continuing to do, is that they make these cheap products that they can flood into the Western markets, and that actually enriches communism, okay? So the People's Republic of China, I have to differentiate between the two Chinas. So the People's Republic, it wants, to maintain communism, okay? It does not want to destroy communism, and I'm talking about the government here. So the People's Republic, it's saying, okay, we're going to play capitalism, okay? We're going to make these goods and sell them, but we're not going to create democracy. We're not going to create a system of, people's rights or civil rights. We're not going to give an open society individual freedoms. What we're going to do is we're going to maintain our totalitarian state by selling cheap goods, okay? So, for example, the laptop that I'm using right now, made in China, okay? I have an old TV made in China, okay? I have a Nintendo Wii still made in China, okay? However, I do have an old Game Boy Color, which, as a matter of fact, it's made in Taiwan. Now, of course, that's far back in time a little bit, so I guess at that time, Nintendo was still willing to work with Taiwan. But somehow later, Nintendo and many other electronics companies decided China was cheaper and somehow more effective, so that's where they go now. But it's so strange that, I know it's from a monetary standpoint, okay, it's super cheap to make in China. But, for a country like Japan, right, where Nintendo is based, for them to say, yeah, we'll make our product in China, in communist China, that it just seems ludicrous that they would be okay with that. I guess it's all about the money. It's all about, where can it be made the cheapest, and China is more cheap than Taiwan apparently. But you're enriching your enemy, and I talked about this in my Belarus video, or in Vietnam also. When you trade with an enemy like that, even if they're not actively trying to invade places, but that they would like to, their government would like to, you're enriching them. This is what's so terrible about all these made in China products, is that when we buy made in China, and sometimes you have no choice, right? There's sometimes, okay, I need this item, and they only have Chinese made, and you just have to buy it. And a lot of us don't even think about, what country it was made in. We think about the price, right? But really, we should. We should think about where it was made, because we are helping a totalitarian regime get richer and richer and richer and richer every time we buy more Chinese products, okay? Just an example to show, that China does not want to change, and again, I'm talking about the government, not necessarily all the people, but the government. Take Tiananmen Square. That's a perfect example, okay? So 1989, while other countries in Europe were protesting and throwing off the shackles of communism, a lot of young people in China also protested. But what did the Chinese government do? It had a massive military crackdown, and we don't know exactly how many people were killed by the Chinese government, and I don't know the number either, but I know that it's in dispute exactly how many, but I believe it's in the hundreds or maybe in the thousands that potentially were killed by the Chinese government in those protests. So and of course we have the famous video of the tank man who, with his shopping bags apparently, he stood in front of the tanks, and he when the tank would try to turn left or right, he would move in front of it, and he even got on top of the tank, stepped onto it. And he was arrested, I believe, and of course we don't know his fate, but I'm not sure I don't think we know his fate, but anyway, but the point is, this is what China does. So the people wanted more freedom, and the government responds by killing people and by violently overthrowing the protests, overthrowing any opposition, right, to its power. So this is crazy, that we still trade with China. Nixon gets a lot of praise for opening up China. Now, in one sense, maybe he was trying to play China against the Soviet Union, maybe, by trading with China. It was another way to put a thorn into the Soviet Union by saying, hey, we just made your ally, a capitalist partner, or in the sense of they're willing to play capitalism. But and so maybe in that sense it was a good intention, but it didn't really work, okay? Because China was very smart, and they said, okay, we'll play capitalism. We'll make capitalist products. We will work with companies and produce their goods, but we will only use it in order to enrich the Communist Party, okay? So China, did not really become capitalist because they just used the wealth that was generated to enrich the power of the Communist Party. Now, China is becoming wealthier, the people are becoming somewhat wealthier, and there is somewhat kind of an emerging middle class. So maybe it's possible that China will, by osmosis, become a free capitalist country, democratic country. But for the foreseeable future, the government certainly is not willing to be open and free. In a political sense, they certainly really do not have freedom, okay? Except for the special economic zones that the People's Republic has on the mainland, and I don't know if there are islands involved in this, but there are special cities like Macau and Hong Kong that are areas where capitalism is allowed, in the sense of more freedom, more openness, and China actually gets a lot of money from this, but as in a whole sense, the People's Republic does not operate in that way. The mainland operates under one party, the Communist Party, totalitarianism. Their president I'm butchering his name, I'm sorry, Xi Jinping, he declared himself president for life not too long ago. I mean, this is not the mark of democracy at all, So China really, what I would recommend, okay, and I know this is difficult. In fact, it would be difficult for me to do it completely, but try to boycott Chinese goods. Whenever you can avoid Chinese goods, try to avoid them, okay? Because they are not our friend. And again, I'm talking about the government. The people, I know a lot of them are good people and are trying their best under what system they have. But I'm talking about the government, okay? So whenever you can avoid Chinese goods, don't buy them, okay? In fact, in your home, wherever you can, try to get rid of your Chinese goods, okay? And I know that might get expensive, my TV is Chinese and I don't want to, throw it away and get a new one, and can I even get a new TV that's not Chinese? So this might be hard to do it on a 100% basis. But whenever you can avoid it, try to avoid Chinese goods, because Taiwan is the real legitimate government of China. It's the Republic of China that was exiled, that lost in its civil war. Okay. Now, you're not going to see a lot of Taiwanese goods anymore. I wish there were more. There should be. Apparently, these companies that in our country don't want to work with Taiwan, they want to work with China. Okay, so that makes it harder for the consumer. But let's say you have a product, let's say you have a digital clock maybe, right? And you have a whole bunch that are made in China on the shelf, and you have one maybe that's made in Malaysia. Okay, I don't even know if you would find one made in Malaysia nowadays, but even that would be a good decision. It doesn't have to be made in America, okay? It doesn't have to be made in the United States, but just another country that is not so much of a potential enemy, okay? As far as I know, I'm sure there are problems in Malaysia, but it's not like China, okay? It's not an active, communist government trying to potentially one day invade its neighbors or supplant the global power structure. So even if it's made in another country, now there are other countries maybe that are problematic, and I may talk about that later. I will talk about that later, but for now, China is really, you want to avoid it, okay? Until hopefully one day they get democracy, or the Republic of China returns and regains power. That would be ideal. Now, the Republic is not perfect. Taiwan, I believe, was a dictatorship for many years until the last number of decades that they finally got democracy. But even so, the Republic versus the People's Republic. I mean, think about the Cultural Revolution in China, where many, many people died of starvation and, I forget what else happened. I don't know if there was any political I think there might have been political purges, but certainly starvation as Mao tried to forcibly industrialize the country. This is not a friend. China is not an ally. Taiwan is the ally. So in the case of the two Chinas, you want to support Taiwan, okay? Because Taiwan is the real republic, and it's the real country trying to be democratic and capitalist and free. Again, it has problems, but the People's Republic is not, it's trying to supplant the United States. It's trying to supplant Europe. It's trying to supplant all free countries so that it can be the dominant power. And it's trying to build these little islands in the South China Sea to bolster. We don't even know exactly what they're doing yet, but they're trying to create some kind of, military. I don't know if they're like little stopping points that they would invade other countries through these little islands. They would stop on these islands and then go off. We don't know exactly why they're building these artificial islands, but certainly that's not good either. That's frightening. Why are they doing that? It's definitely not for a peaceful it's not a peaceful reason. It doesn't seem. As far as I understand, they're like tarmacs, for like military planes, and they're like bases, right? As far as I understand. But anyway, the main point is that, avoid Chinese goods. Try to buy, from other countries if you can, because the People's Republic is basically almost winning in the sense of, they have the best of both worlds. They're making all this money from capitalism, and it's only going towards bolstering the continuation of the communist regime. And in other words, the Cold War is not over. It's just changed its format. And I think that's something that we need to remember. Well, that's it for this video, and catch you next time.